Hi guys, welcome to the Time Caregiver Confessions. I'm your host Cami, and this is a space for every time caregiver trying to figure it all out, from managing the overwhelm to finding the little moments of calm in the chaos. Each week I'll unpack real stories, practical tips, and a few honest laughs about what it's really like to step into caregiving for the first time. So take a deep breath, you're in good company. Let's get into today's confession. Hey guys, so today's confession: learning the ropes when you have no medical background. Oh my goodness. If you listened to my first episode, you know a little bit about how I just was thrust into being a caregiver with my sibling. And if you haven't listened to that episode, be sure to go back and listen to episode 1. But the other part of becoming a caregiver, first, my mother a little bit had assistance with taking care of her along with my sister, but the other part is the father, the parent. So when you have no medical background, it's a whole nother learning journey trying to figure out if you're doing things right. So when it comes to our father, in contrast to our mother, he has overwhelmingly a plethora of ailments and chronic conditions. I'm talking like anything from diabetes, sleep apnea, congestive heart failure for over 2 decades. He's got asthma. He has kidney issues. He has, limited mobility that's declining. He has trouble sleeping. There's so many things wrong, kidney issues, just so many ailments, and it's so much for just us, one person or just 2 people to handle. He really needs to be in, like, at this point, because he's like 80, 81, he really needs to be like in a nursing home with full-time care. But if you're listening to this podcast and this episode, I'm just a regular girl. We're not a family that has, 7 figures, super wealthy, can afford, to put him in nursing care. However, we, are also in one of those positions where we're not at the point where we would be qualified necessarily for Medicaid either. So, and also things in that regard with healthcare is changing. We don't know what's going on because there's so many changes going on presently, 2025. As if you're listening right now, we know that we don't know what the state of healthcare is going to be. As of right now, looks like a lot of people's healthcare is going to go up astronomically, and people are just may be in the position to make a choice to just either go without it. And it feels so bad for those that are extremely sick or have a lot of chronic conditions, and they have to choose between eating and living. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, specifically today, we're talking about the confession. How are you handling when you have no medical background? The overwhelm of not knowing what to do. So some of the things that we have learned with my sister and I along the way, as silly as it may sound, one of the biggest obstacles we faced that was a big learning lesson was when dealing with a person with chronic conditions that happens to be on a lot of medications like our father. He literally has at least a dozen different medications. And one of the biggest life lessons we learned was the mixing and combining of medications does matter. It literally can be fatal. And one of the things we've learned especially last year, combining certain medications. And when I say combining, meaning if you're following the directions on the label, like, okay, take in the afternoon or take 3 times a day, it is important to make sure that certain combinations with the medications are safe, because some interactions with certain medications can counteract each other and make either certain medications be more potent or more impactful, or it can be as bad as being fatal to the patient Or you may have some things like in our father's case, for him, not only was he experiencing things like falling down and weakness in his legs, he was experiencing hallucinations. My sister, she is the one that lives with him 24/7. And I, as the eldest, I happen to be married, so I live outside the home, but I help with the caregiving duties and appointments and doctor's appointments and finances. But with her, she was witnessing, him being weak in terms of his leg strength, falling down, some incontinence issues, him swearing, "Oh my gosh, there's spiders crawling on the wall. Don't you see that?" So these are some of the things that we experienced when we were trying to figure out what is going on. And because we had no medical background, we finally realized, okay, maybe it has something to do with the medications he's taking, because a lot of these pharmaceutical medications have side effects. So one of the biggest tools I learned that helped as a part-time caregiver along with my sister, we learned to check up. The tool we use is webmd.com. So it's WEBMD.com. And there's a section where you can check prescription drug interactions on the website, and you can type in the name of the drug that your patient or your loved one is taking. You can list as many, I think you separate them with commas, but you can look up the medication, put each of the medications in the box, and it will populate a pop-up indicating, okay, no interactions, keep proceeding. Or it may pop up, alert, this may have a severe reaction, please monitor, or this is dangerous, don't combine these medicines. So that was a huge help when it came to trying to figure out, you don't have medical background, but you want to try to do your best to make sure you're being safe. So in terms of medications, that's one of the biggest tips that I learned using WebMD, to check drug interaction medications. The other thing that we learned when it came to, we don't have a medical background, but we're trying our best to make sure the environment is safe, was one of several times when my father returned from the hospital. They have like occupational therapists that will come to help make sure your environment, your immediate living environment, is safe for either your loved one or your senior that you're taking care of. So things like grab bars in the bathrooms, making sure they don't, apparatuses that help them keep them secure, prevent them from falling. Also bed rails, so when they're getting in and out of bed, they have something sturdy to hold on to. Also chairs, recommended chairs with handles on the side so they can push up, push off the handles to stand upright. Also, things like that, safety mechanisms in the household are good to look into. And there are things like bed rails you can get like on Amazon. Also for the bathroom, handrails you can get on Amazon, or some medical supply equipment websites. You can also get those type of tools. But for us, Amazon was the easiest one, just because we're familiar with that. And, they have fast shipping and whatnot. Also, I love the wonderful world of YouTube, looking at other tips for, taking care of elderly patients. So, and also things like having the proper footwear and shoes helps as well. Also, one of the biggest things, and I'll have to talk about this in a future podcast, is watching them taking care of another patient or parent. It really puts to the forefront in your mind, like, wow, I really need to get my stuff together. Like, I really need to get when I say my stuff together, I need to get my physical fitness and strength together now while I'm young, because I don't want to end up how they are, because he has very limited mobility. The smallest things, he has such labored breathing. And yes, I understand he's aging. He's at the age of 81 right now, But on the flip side, my sister works in a nonprofit and she works in a career where she also happens to see a lot of seniors. And those seniors happen to have a lot of mobility, activity, very social, very active. So that whole adage about, age is just a number, that is definitely the truth. you know, if you're keeping up with your activity and your social circles and working out daily and moving daily, it definitely makes a difference. So that whole adage, like age is just a number, that is so true. So definitely take care of your health now while you're younger and active, because I think your older self will thank yourself later. Your future self will thank your younger self right now. And that's what I'm actively trying to do. I'm not perfect, but I'm actively, consciously making that effort to get activity in at least 4 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week now, because my older self will be thanking myself later for it. So just with that in mind, in terms of the lessons I learned, give yourself a little grace. You're not a medical profession, an RNA or a doctor, but use the resources in which you have, whether it's just YouTube, trying to, listen to either other podcasts or other medical professionals talking about how to aid. There are books out there, obviously, there are resource and support groups out there. But definitely don't hesitate to ask your doctors questions, ask for resources, and just, you don't know what to do. But this is going to definitely be a journey in learning about everything from medications and, how certain medical offices operate, being an advocate for your elderly parent or your loved one. So you're not going to get everything right, but just know you do the best you can with the information in which you have in the current moment. And that's all you can do. So thanks for listening to this episode of First Time Caregiver Confessions. I hope this episode resonated with you and hope you feel seen and supported. Please take a second to follow the show and share it with another caregiver who could use a little encouragement. You can also connect with us on our website in the link in the description, and also wherever you listen to get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, to keep the conversation going. Until next time, guys, take care of yourself and remember you're doing better than you think. Bye.